What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another FPL video. My name is Mo, and today I'll be going through a draft which I've made without no Erling Haaland. Yes, you've heard correctly, no Haaland in my current draft. So I've always made a draft this season so far with some really key players that I've always had who I've set and forgot. So that includes Erling Haaland, it's included Bukayo Saka, Stupian, for example. So these are the three players that have been almost nailed on every single draft that I've made. And I've come to think of it, essentials, is Erling Haaland an essential? He's owned by 85% of managers. In that sense, we shouldn't really go by ownership or previous seasons, they usually say, but he really is an essential according to the fixture run that Man City have in the first 6 games. But there are 14 to 15% of managers, guys, who have started this game without Erling Haaland. Is it possible to get a good team in your squad and not have Haaland? I've made an attempt to make a draft this time without Erling Haaland, and it looks pretty good, to be fair. So we go through my rationale of decisions of why I selected those players. Have I covered the Haaland gap in my squad of not owning him? Maybe. Will I be brave enough to go through that at the start of the season? Maybe not. But the more I look at this draft, the better it looks. So we'll go through it together and we'll see who I've brought into my squad to kind of make up for the loss of Haaland in my squad. Remember, guys, out of 15 players, we're trying to get £100 million spent, and we're investing £14 million into one player. But there are alternative ways to make a good draft. We're all talking about price points, good midfielder points. So let's get into a draft without Erling Haaland and let's see what it looks like. Let me know what your thoughts are as well. But before we do that, guys, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button if you're new around here, and join the FPL INKLING family. So here we have it, guys. This is my squad. The formation I've chosen is pretty much the template formation so far at the start of this season. Pre-season that we've decided is 3-5-2. So in goal, I've gone for Ramsdale. So again, we talked about how good Arsenal's fixtures look. One of the best keepers last season. Good points, good save points as well, good bonus points as well throughout the season. 143 points for a 5 mil keeper is a really good return. To be fair, I was quite surprised that he's not been priced at 5.5 mil, considering how well Arsenal did last season. And he got 14 clean sheets, remember. So in terms of generally how he's returned in terms of his price, a really good price point. Let's look at the first 5 to 6 fixtures for Arsenal, barring Manchester United in game week 4 and Spurs in game week 6. I generally believe they have a really good run all the way up to the game week 7. So Nottingham Forest at home, first game week, Crystal Palace, Fulham, Everton and Bournemouth within the first 6 to 7 game weeks. So Ramsdale, a really good prospect to have in goal. And in this draft, I've put in a good goalkeeper because I wanted some cover from Arsenal. And in terms of my bench, I've put in Areola. So Areola has become my kind of reserve goalkeeper because it's quite likely that Fabianski will leave West Ham, and if he becomes the number 1 option at 4 mil, just like last season we had at Leicester, then why not? We could potentially think that we could have a goalkeeper at 4 mil starting as well. There's also a chance that Tom Heaton could be joining as well at £4 million within the Premier League, so that'll be interesting to see if he comes in at number 1, 2. Now moving to the defence, we're going to Luke Shaw from Manchester United. Almost 35% of managers own him. Had his best season last season, 124 points repeated again from 2 seasons ago with 5 returns. He played centre-back as well, so a good thing to be aware of that. If there is any injury to Martinez or Varane, or if there's any rotation, he can actually slot up in the back line in terms of centre-back as well. There might be a bit of rotation later in the season with kind of Malaysia, I think, potentially. Malacia, how we pronounce it. But I think generally, overall, Luke Shaw's a pretty safe bet. And they've got some really good fixtures in the first couple of games. So Wolves and Nottingham Forest in game week 1 and 2. Spurs and Arsenal, respectively, are tougher games in 2 and 4. And Brighton in game week 5. And then Burnley away in Crystal Palace, Brentford and Sheffield United. United last season had a kind of like a split season. So at home, they were phenomenal. On the road, not so great. What the best clean sheet team last season. I know David De Gea is gone, but they're getting a really solid pick in Onana. Can he continue it? He most certainly can. He got a fair few bonus points as well last season throughout the campaign. 20 bonus points. That's nearly, let's say around 20% of his points, 25% of his points coming in terms of bonus. I expect really good things from Luke Shaw again, and if he's injury free, a really good pick to have in your backline. Now I want to maximise as much returns as possible from Man City because of the opening 6 fixtures. Barring Newcastle in game week 2, the rest of the fixtures look pretty decent for Manchester City. Burnley away, Newcastle at home in game week 2, Sheffield United, Fulham, West Ham, Nottingham Forest, Wolves, and then Arsenal and Brighton at 8 and 9. But I think John Stones last season played a bit more of a forward role in terms of centre defensive midfield, so that's a new spot for him to take up. I know Kovacic has arrived and Gundogan's gone. There's injuries to Kevin De Bruyne, and we don't know where Bernardo Silva is going to play, so it's a lot of speculation around Man City generally, but I think it's a really safe bet to have in your squad and plenty of clean sheet opportunities to have. Man City squandered a lot of clean sheet opportunities last season in terms of conceding a goal in the last 5 to 10 minutes of a game, but I think they'll be back to their solid best this season and more clean sheets will be available. Now I've picked Kieran Trippier in this draft at 34.2% of managers already picking him. 6.5 mil, it's quite excessive, but we know what we're going to get from him if he stays fit throughout the whole season. Played every single game last season, 198 points with 10 returns with 9 assists and a goal. He does take set pieces. Newcastle do have an attacking team, and Eddie Howe's done a fantastic job. I'm aware that the first 2 of the 3 fixtures do throw a lot of managers off Newcastle. Man City away and Liverpool at home will not be easy games. But in and around that, in the first 8 to 9 fixtures, they do have a really good run. So Aston Villa in game week 1 at home will be a good game. Brighton away is not going to look like an easy fixture. Brentford at home will be tough as well. But then Sheffield United, Burnley, West Ham, Crystal Palace. Now in terms of Trippier, a clean sheet is not out of the question or out of the ordinary for Newcastle if they perform to the levels they did last season with Pope and goal as well. But I think there's a lot of attacking returns potentially there as well. And I think Kieran Trippier is a safe bet to have. So that's my back line, guys. Moving on to the midfield, so 5 across the midfield, I've gone for James Maddison. So moving from Leicester to Tottenham. I think with the new manager, the new setup with Son, Kulusevski and Kane in the lineup, if he stays and does not go to Bayern Munich, I think he'll have a really good chance to score big this season. 16% of managers already own him, and I expect, some really good returns from him. 135 points last season. He was injured for part of the season, but he's still got 19 returns, which is really phenomenal for James Maddison in a struggling Leicester team that actually got relegated. And in terms of fixtures for Spurs, they do take a swing after game week 2. Brentford away, Manchester United at home are not easy fixtures, but he can score in those games for sure, or contribute at least to the goals that may be scored by Spurs. Bournemouth, Burnley, Sheffield, Arsenal, Liverpool, Luton and Fulham in the next 7 games respectively. So there's a lot of good fixtures to take advantage of for James Maddison. He might be a wait and watch for most managers because at price points like Phil Foden, Grealish, they can be moved, or if they're a bit higher, for example, like Rashford or Bruno Fernandes or even Martinelli, there can be a lot of movement, or even from Mbembo, if people have spare cash in the bank, they can actually go up and upgrade to Maddison. So Spurs coverage in my midfield. Then I've got Phil Foden. Again, we talked about Manchester City's fixtures. I think we're going to talk more around how much game time he'll get. I think this might be the breakout season for Phil Foden. He did get 13 starts in a row last season, guys, at the start of the season, which was really good, and then kind of got benched and got the frequent here and there performance. But I think Kevin De Bruyne being injured, Mahrez pretty certain to leave, and we've already seen Gundogan leave Manchester City. I think there's a lot of possibility that you can see Phil Foden be played on the right, but if not, even if Bernardo Silva moves over to the right hand side, that does open up the midfield spot for him, and I think he's a great asset to have. Owned by around 13% of managers. I think that will increase by the time we get to game week 1, when more managers get signed up to the game, and we'll see a bit more pre-season from Manchester City. So Phil Foden is in this draft. Now the next player I have is going to be 2 additional midfielders from Manchester United. So we're going to have Bruno Fernandes and Rashford. We've already talked about the fixtures for Manchester United. I think Manchester United, we don't want to get drawn into the fact that they score lots of goals. They were actually quite poor last season in terms of goals scored. However, the bulk of the goals that were scored, the main contributors were Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford. 17 returns respectively, but after the World Cup, Bruno performed far better, and his underlying numbers, most chances created in the league, actually back him up. And I think he's been underpriced along with Phil Foden, as I've mentioned in my previous videos. So why not get him in? Pretty much plays every minute, on set pieces, penalty taker as well. Got 176 points last season, and I think there's a lot to be admired for Bruno Fernandes. And then also Rashford, fixtures again, they look pretty good for Manchester United. 43% of managers actually own him at the moment. 205 points last season, first time he ever achieved the 200 point mark. 9 mil, he's been priced this season. He's gone up from 6.5 mil. I still think he could have been higher. He could have been easily 9.5, 10 mil, and I don't think his ownership would have changed that much. He was part of 24 goals of, a very minimal amount of goals that Manchester United scored. by comparison to Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool, for example, even Brighton. So I think Manchester City are going to be leading the way in terms of goals. But Man United, I think when they do score, Marcus Rashford and Bruno will be kind of like the focal points. Pretty much plays every single game, does get the occasional rest. But Marcus Rashford signed a new 5-year deal, and there's no reason to have him not in your squad if you're not going to be picking players like Mo Salah and Erling Haaland in your squad. Now, last but not least, Bukayo Saka. I know I've dropped Erling Haaland, but there's no way I was not going to have Saka in this draft. 52% of managers already own him, and I think as the game kind of gets more registrations, his ownership will pretty much stay the same, if not go higher. Last year, Jesus started with about 80% of ownership. That's happened to Haaland this season, but I think he'll be around 50 to 60% owned this season. Pretty much, again, like Bruno Fernandes, will start every single game, over 200 points for the first time, 26 goal returns. I think he could have been overpriced to around 9.5 and 10 mil, and he still would have had the same ownership. But I think Arsenal have a lot to look forward to this season. A really good fixture run, as we've discussed, in terms of Ramsdale already. So I'm looking forward to some really solid performances and good returns from Bukayo Saka. So that's my midfield. Now we'll go on to my first striker, which I've got Christopher Nkunku. They always say don't really go for the newbies that join the league, but I've seen a lot of him outside of the Premier League to know that there's a lot he can bring to this Chelsea side. Now let's take form and last season out of the question for Chelsea. Looking at this fixtures, barring the first game of Liverpool at home, I don't think until game week 9 where they get Arsenal, I don't have any concerns around their fixtures, whether that's defensively or offensively. It seemed pretty good run, to be fair. West Ham, Luton, Nottingham Forest, Bournemouth, Villa, Fulham and Burnley. So I think there's a really good chance that he could go big. Again, it's all about the setup and Poch, how he sets them up. But I think there needs to be some coverage. And I think by game week 3, we will kind of understand where Chelsea are going, what their setup looks like, and if people are going to go for him or not. So I expect his ownership at some point to be higher throughout the season, because I think he will go big at some point in those first 9 game weeks. And now, last but not least, we're going to go to our captain and our replacement for Erling Haaland, which is Harry Kane. Now, Harry Kane, for example, I think he only scored around like 9 to 11 points less than Erling Haaland last season, which only means that in one game he could have scored one more goal and get a few bonus points, and it would have been pretty much level. And we're saving 1.5 mil on a player in terms of what output Haaland gave last season, but he's only owned by about 15% of managers, again, which is a differential. He pretty much starts every game. 39 goal returns last season, 30 goals and 9 assists. I personally think, he will be, if he does stay, performing at some point of the season. We've already discussed Spurs fixtures as a general, but Harry Kane can score in any game in kind of like a defensive midfielder role. When he comes back from to help out with the lineup, he can get Son, Maddison, Kulusevski, even Richarlison involved. So I think there's a lot to admire about Harry Kane. And is he a direct replacement of Haaland? Yes, this is a draft without Salah, without Haaland, but I think Harry Kane is a Mr. Reliable, safe pick. 7 points a game on average last season. I think season in, season out, he has performed. He always gets around the 30 to 35 returns mark in terms of goals and assists. And why not, guys? If you're not going to go for Haaland, if you're going to be brave enough, then Harry Kane is the player to have. In terms of the bench, Bayer, 4 mil defender from Burnley, Bell, 4 million defender from Luton, both were blank in game week 2, and Archer has a 4.5, kind of like a holding striker. So that is what my draft looks like, guys. I'm pretty confident of that. I know it looks weak without Haaland, but there is still value in that squad. And Harry Kane did not do that badly last season in comparison to that Erling Haaland amazing season. We've seen Kane do it week in, week out, season in, season out for many years. Haaland did it amazing last season. Will he get more rotation this season? Will he be looked after a bit more by Pep? We just don't know. I assume he'll get most of the game started, but we just have to monitor how much game time he'll get. Do City rely on him a bit too much? Do we need to think outside the box if we don't have Haaland? So that's what the squad looks like, guys. Let me know what your thoughts are. Do you like this squad? Are you brave enough to go with a squad without Erling Haaland? It'll be great to see your thoughts and hear your thoughts as well. Thank you so much for watching this. Let me know what your thoughts are. If you do like the draft, if you like the video, give us a like. And if you like the content that I'm making, guys, thank you so much for all the people who have joined. Hit that subscribe button too and be part of the FPL INKLING family as well. I hope you guys have a good day. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll be back with some content very, very soon. Take care.